I believe we are super close to having a red line of the most recent bylaws in front of us. For some reason, sorry. Would you like to read the conflict of interest statement?
Sure. It's an opportunity for each member to disclose potential conflicts in their belief that they can be unbiased and able to participate, or that they elect to recuse themselves from the matter. I have no plan for conflict.
I have no conflict either. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak for public comment? All right, we don't see anybody, so we will keep moving. We need to approve the March 13th bylaws meetings.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On page 2, first paragraph, says the current practice comes from a previously expired policy, basically the policy of $50,000 threshold. So that comes from minutes. And is that a policy or a resolution that had made the $50,000?
I don't know that there was a signed resolution.
So it's just something that passed in the minutes. Does that make it policy?
Yes, it could.
Okay.
You speak through your minutes, so
All right.
resolution would simply come on the back end.
Why are we calling this an expired policy? What makes it expire?
Page 2, first full sentence, the current. Okay. And so he's asking why are we calling this an expired policy versus just previous practice, prior practice?
I mean, it's a policy that was adopted by the board, but it didn't have a temporal limit on it from what I could see.
So we just need to amend those.
Council, is there any reason
I
to think
wouldn't call
it
it-
has expired?
I have no basis to know that it's
Okay,
expired.
well, I would suggest we strike expired.
Okay.
So that policy is still,
I think that's why it's being
Intact.
considered for address in the bylaws.
Okay, no, I'm fine with that. Do we need to motion and second, or can we?
You can motion it as corrected.
Okay. Can I get a motion to correct the minutes at the top of page 2 from reading a previous expired policy to a previous policy?
well, to a
It's the current
Current
policy.
To the current policy, okay.
the current practice
You
comes.
could say believed to be current, but
You
I
could
don't
say-
have a legal basis to say that it no longer exists.
Okay.
The current policy, we could read, the current practice comes from
How about a previously adopted policy?
a previously adopted policy. And I think we should probably cite the minutes. I didn't copy that, but it's the minutes where this policy was adopted.
Janet
But-
shared those, I believe.
Yeah, they're in the, there was an attachment that had that, so we could just cite the date of that in case anybody wanted to look back and see that.
Okay.
Okay, and the other is in
The date of that was March 29th, 2018.
thank you. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs down that begins with discussion of the need for HAB attendance. There is a sentence that says, Mr. Smith advised the options for those who have not reached the level of attendance expected are encouragement, censure, that should be
Censure, yes.
C-E-N-S-U-R-E.
Censure. Okay. Anything else?
No,
Okay, so do we just need to do a motion for those 2 amendments, or do we need to do individual?
You can motion to approve the minutes
As corrected.
yeah,
corrected.
by those
Okay.
2 corrections.
And you
yes. I
don't,
so moved.
yeah.
A second, thank you.
Aye.
Nice work, Dr. Martin, thank you.
I'm interested in making things move along.
Okay. All right, so we have approved the March 13th bylaw minutes. And now we will move to new business where we are able to look through this red line copy of the bylaws. Did you I don't think we need to go page by page or line by line. Weren't there just two sections we wanted to review?
Yeah.
The,
Attendance and the
I
threshold.
think to be fair, let's just, I can point out where there are very few changes.
okay.
So page 6 is the first change.
All right.
All right.
And I'm going to embarrassingly say I did not bring my glasses with me. So until the red ones come out.
Oh, we've got.
Joy. Now I can see.
Oh, no, I was right there with you.
Oh, we got red lines?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so there are more.
Okay. We'll start wherever you tell us.
So some of these red lines have existed already. So what we want to go is let's go. Well, it is hard to track, so we're just going to go. Let's go to where we pinpointed. There is something on page 5 on closed sessions. I think that's been reviewed already.
Okay.
So the first one on page 6 is where I commented on attendance, section 8.
Okay. Research to provide clear guidance. So this is why we're here today.
Right,
Or one of the
right.
reasons.
Right, so that was a comment, and then where, I think the best practice we decided was to leave it as they were removed as the same manner as other people. If we need to know specifically how that might be with other boards or commissions, we can do that research.
I mean,
Can we put what it is? Is there a reason not to say, I mean, it has to be removed by 2/3 of the members of the Metro?
Derek, do you
Metro
know?
Council. I just need to check that number. It could even be 3/4, but I think it is 2/3. But I can give you the Metro Code section.
I mean,
But
Now,
the
that could
approving
be
authority
helpful.
would not be, would have to remove a member, period, whether it says it in the Metro Code or not. But if you want to say what the
well,
vote,
I just, if, next time somebody's looking at this, why not have it in there rather than having to research it again?
well, the one hesitancy I have, the numbering of the code likely wouldn't change, but they could change the amount of the vote. And your bylaws would then be out of sync.
Okay,
But we could cite to the Metro Code provision that clearly states what, and I just don't recall the citation at the moment.
Okay.
But we could provide that, I could provide that.
let's do that.
Okay.
I think the
And
citation-
that way, we can get to it quicker.
Okay, yes.
And
Okay.
likewise, if they decided to renumber the code, there would be a reference that is removed and replaced with a section, so your bylaws would still be effective and current without having to track that down.
So-
Okay, perfect. That sounds
So when
good.
we talked about this last time, Derek made some suggestions of steps that could be taken. And we asked to find out what they did in other boards and commissions. And, well, you can repeat for the group what your
Yeah.
thoughts are about that.
Other boards and commissions typically don't set out an attendance requirement. It could be theories of thought that you don't want to set, a goal, then people reach for that low bar instead of what they signed up to and committed, which is except in an emergency situation, you commit to be here. Having said that, though, there is one body affiliated with Metro's Homeless Planning Council within their charter, because they're not a board or commission, though they were created by Metro Council. They're an independent body, but in their charter that they adopted, they have a 75% attendance requirement. And then they have 3 different ways of being affirmed for that body, but the only removal authority rests with either the membership or the mayor for the ones he approved, or the council members of the Metro Council that are assigned can be removed by, I believe it's the vice mayor. So they got a little bit different stuff going on, but to Dr. Martin's question, they do set a floor of attendance at least 75%.
So, I mean, here's the reason this is brought up. Right now, you can be a member of this board and not attend 5, 6, 8 straight meetings, and nothing is, our bylaws don't call on anything to be done.
Right.
And it seems to me that, you know, a stepwise thing like you're suggested is good, but the bylaws ought to say that the board chair will take these steps, or the board will take these steps, or where somebody's actually called upon to do something.
Yeah.
Because right now, there's nothing, and it could be something like, you know, if a member over a 12-month period fails to attend 50%, 75%, then these actions will be taken.
Yeah.
And even if it's something relatively benign, like encouragement, censure on a majority of members present or a majority of members. I think it should be a majority of members probably, because it's a serious thing. Have an appointed person to discuss the member of their ability, you know, that should definitely be in there.
So is it helpful if we make that, if I come up with that language now, so you don't have to come back and look at it again? So why don't we have a sentence at the end of this that just says, if a member of the board misses more than,
Let me offer one. I think it ought to be two things. Cumulative absenteeism over the course of a year. But I have seen bodies that have their chair contact a member who, without providing a reason, has missed 2 consecutive meetings.
Yeah.
They reach out to say, is something up? Can we?
I was gonna do the
Yeah, I like
first.
that.
I was gonna do a 3-step thing. So
Okay.
if a member of the board misses more than, why don't we? Is it 2 or 3? I mean, we have them every.
I'd say 3.
I'd say 3 too.
Yeah.
For the entire year, you mean, or 3 consecutive?
3 in a row.
3
in a row.
consecutive.
Okay.
3.
3 consecutive.
And
And these are full
Should-
board meetings.
Should the word be misses, or should it be fails to attend? Is that a more,
Fails to attend. Well, I
Does
mean,
not attend?
It's these days people like plain language, but fails to attend
Okay,
is probably
good.
more.
See,
So
I just had
it,
this
so
legal
fails to
thing.
attend.
okay. 3 consecutive meetings.
3 consecutive meetings. The board chair
Well,
shall contact the member to what do we want them to do to really determine? It's kind of like determine their interest.
maybe the board chair shall counsel the member and determine
I like counsel the member.
their
If they're
Continued
able to
interest.
fulfill their
to
responsibility.
serve, their ability to fulfill their responsibility.
Yeah, I like that.
To serve.
Shall counsel the member and so counsel the member to determine their ability to fulfill their duties. Period.
Okay.
If a member misses more than, you want to say 40% of the meetings in a 300 in a year?
I would make it, I'd make it the opposite. I would make it, if a member fails to attend at least 75%, 50%.
But if it's what, 11, you said 11, typically there's 11.
What she proposed at 40 means they miss 5, attend 7. 50% means 6 and 6.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and then 40% or 50% is 6 and 6, and 75% is 8 and 4.
It's almost like you miss the 3, you get counseled, we figure out what's going on, you're going to stay on the board. Then you turn around and miss 3 more meetings.
I think 2 more, but 3.
2 more? Okay. And if you miss 2 more, then we're determining, then we're
Then
moving into-
the member, then the board member will be, well, what number, what I want is that if you miss more than whatever amount it is, then the board member will be considered for removal.
Except that we can't remove, so.
make
Will
a
be
recommendation for
will be
removal.
Recommendation to the mayor.
Will be
For
recommended
removal.
for removal.
Yeah.
I like the 2. I think so. It'd probably be 5. I guess I'd be at 5 because you missed 3, you get counseled 2 more
So 40%.
recommendation.
So, yeah, but also you wouldn't, you have to actually miss, let's see. Is it, if you miss 3 in a row? So, okay, right. So,
I think I think they were saying it's 3 cumulative, not necessarily in a row.
It's 3 in a row that gets the call from the board
Right.
chair, but it's 5 in a year that gets you up for
yeah,
Recommended.
okay. And it shouldn't be a calendar year. It should be
a year.
any year.
In a year, in a
How do you say
356 year, day period.
Okay. During any 300.
So at least 4, are we saying 40%?
I think 50. Well, we want, see this, you're saying,
I think that you said 40% is, don't come to the lawyer about
I
math.
was going to say math is not.
well,
Well, we
I
need-
think we
7
should,
and 5.
I think we should.
Rounding.
Yeah.
I think we should establish an expectation that you attend at least 50% of the members. So that's why I would word it. If you fail to attend,
If a member fails to attend
at
50%,
least 50% of the meetings, then the consequence.
I also have a suggestion. Did be specified that those are regular board meetings as opposed to the special called meetings that could add.
Okay.
Because sometimes the expectation is you're going to set aside that
The scheduled board
the scheduled
meetings.
board
Yes,
meeting
yeah.
and attend special ones, certainly when you can. But,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want someone to get caught up in this rule because you've had 4 special called meetings plus 12 regular meetings in a year. That can,
Yeah.
that can start taking a toll on folks.
Okay. You're right. I mean,
I like it.
you should be able to anticipate and adjust your schedule, 6, 8, 10 months ahead to try to be at the meetings.
I'm not going to say they will be recommended for approval. I'm going to say may, although, because maybe someone has, in certain circumstances, they're extenuating circumstances, like they fell off the roof.
Should we put some wording in there that calls on people, something about excused absences?
Oh, my goodness.
I think let's start with this and we can review it again because we need to get into what is an excused absence. What's a good excused absence?
Well, and you'd almost think if I've missed 3 meetings and someone calls and I fell off the roof and cannot attend and you didn't know, then
Yeah.
now there's an understanding.
But you can get into this second tier without missing 3 in a row. You can miss 2 and go to 1, miss
Yeah.
2 and go to 1. So not everybody will go through that call. I don't know. I mean, when I can't come to a meeting, I tell Janet, hey, I'm out of town,
Right.
I've got COVID, whatever. And you always know whether people are coming or not, right? And do they sometimes respond that they're coming and then not come?
Most respond and tell me one way or another.
Yeah.
I do
Occasionally they don't
have,
respond.
I have 1 or 2 that won't respond. I actually have 2 that off the top of my head that rarely respond unless I.
I think this is a good start. What we have is, if a member of the board fails to attend more than 3 consecutive meetings The board chair shall counsel the member to determine their ability to fulfill their duties. If a member fails to attend at least 50% of regularly called meetings in a 356-day period, the member may be recommended for removal.
I have one question.
I like it.
You're going to have some board members coming in the middle, you're using 365 days. Almost everything that this board does is governed from the start of the fiscal year of July 1 through June 30, including, you'll have some departures and interim, but I don't know if that's going to get confusing to folks. In one place, we use 365 days.
I don't think
and then
so.
for other things, everything starts and ends, the valuations of the CEO are to start taking place based on the fiscal year.
I don't want somebody to be able to miss 4 meetings in fiscal 23, and then they get a reset
In 24.
on July the 1st. So that's why I
when
like
is it, this is going to be 365 from the date of this
Is it
amendment?
365?
any
365 from the start of that member.
365-day period.
From the
Okay.
So from the member start date, that's when the 365
term.
term, excuse me.
Okay.
I know that,
No,
Well, that- just
it
make
can
it-
be from February to February or November to
Just, I
November.
think it's okay to say in a rolling 12-month period.
Yeah, rolling. That's what I'm.
But who's rolling, the board itself or the member? I'm trying to-
Just the day.
It's just a date. It's not
So
anybody's
if-
rolling.
So if the member doesn't start until April 31st, I'm just making it, April 30th, then they won't have an opportunity to hit a rolling 12-month period until the next April one,
Right.
right? So it won't matter when they start, it's just that
Yeah,
period
doesn't matter
rolls.
when they start.
But I guess someone is going to have to calculate this, I guess it'll be Janet. So she'll be looking at each member's start date from the adoption of this bylaw.
The start date doesn't matter.
I think it's not a problem until you have a whole bunch of absences, right? 50%, 50% is pretty
So
stark.
we're gonna, Janet's been giving us an attendance report. And, I think we want to ask her to continue to do that. And it won't come to a head till we start to notice something. And then it won't matter if they, let's say they started on July 1st. If they miss from September the 1st of one year to September the 1st of another year, more than half the meetings, then they should be subject to this. It doesn't matter when their start date is. It doesn't matter when the fiscal year start date
You
is.
sure? I mean, she keeps,
Any
it's
12
easy to
months.
figure out.
and so once you
So
saw
it just
the-
advances a
the
month at a
spot-
time?
yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I only advance when we have a meeting, so if we skip a month, it's not listed. So it's the last 12 meetings are showing at any given time.
Is red failure to attend there?
Correct.
So you can see, without calling any names or anything, you can see one person who would qualify for this.
Right. This is not my most updated list. This is
Yeah,
actually through January.
doesn't matter.
But you see, as an example.
Yeah.
Does that keep us on track?
Okay, 360.
The changes that were made since your last time are in blue, this turquoise color.
Okay.
So the next change is really minor on page 9, under administration. I'm just being very transparent to you that I got maybe neurotic there, day to day, I changed to daily.
Oh, wait, no, you want-
What do you say? Oh, in the blue, you're saying?
Yeah, the only changes that were made.
Management of
since
daily operations. Got it.
I'm just making sure you know the small changes that were made, so
Yeah,
there's no
thank you.
sneak up on you.
Okay.
I think the next change that we have is to page 10, and this is a substantive one on contracting matters. And this is based on kind of research that Susanna Sells pulled up, and I relied really heavily on kind of the airport authority.
You said this is based on the airport authorities? Okay.
I relied heavily on it,
But
we
the
didn't
airport
copy it.
authority is completely different from the HAP, right?
It is.
Because they don't receive
It
any money from Metro Council, is my understanding. So it's different because we are charged with oversight.
And there's just, I think the issue comes down to I mean, I think let's look through here, and then the dollar amounts are what you're probably talking about. And then it's a matter of how much of the budget is enough that you're kind of micromanaging
Right.
versus how much we really need to, and so let's read through
Let's
the
just walk
language. I
through
mean,
it,
the
yeah.
amount is where you're going to, I think what you're going to, Dr. Martin.
Okay,
And my glasses aren't on, but I think it's helpful to read it.
okay. Want me to read it? Why don't you read it, Michelle?
Okay. The CEO is delegated the authority to enter into any contract for professional medical services up to a maximum obligation of $500,000 per year per contract, inclusive of any amendments thereto. The CEO is delegated the authority to enter into any contract for non-medical professional services, construction, leases, and other contractual arrangements up to a maximum obligation of $325,000 per year per contract, inclusive of any amendments thereto. Subsection B, all contracts, do you want to just stop after that one?
No, I think it's helpful to see it all, and then I'll give my
Okay.
rationale for, I mean, it's a hospital,
I
so
agree.
you're going to have day-to-day professional services.
For sure.
Let's get the context.
Okay. Subsection B, all contracts, agreements, amendments, supplemental agreements, or change orders having an individual or aggregate cost in excess of $10,000 or such other amount as required by controlling law or regulation must receive the certificate of the chief financial the certification, of the chief financial officer. Subsection C, the CEO is authorized, after consultation with the board chair, to execute any contract, lease agreement, amendment, supplemental agreement, or change order which is necessary in an emergency or when necessary to comply with federal or state laws or regulations, so long as said contract, lease agreement, amendment, supplement agreement, or change or is presented to the Board of Trustees at the next regularly scheduled Board of Trustees meeting. Subsection D, the powers of the CEO granted or delegated above may be further delegated by the CEO to any officer of NGH, provided, however, that no such delegation shall exceed $75,000 in each case. Subsection E, prior approval by the Board of Trustees is required in the event of any contract for professional medical services over $500,000 per year and for any other contract over $325,000 per year. Subsection F, notwithstanding anything to the contrary above, prior approval of the Board of Trustees shall be required in the event of any agreement whose term equals or exceeds 8 years.
Okay, there's a lot here to talk about.
Yeah, I try to be very, because when you start opening this door, you start getting other questions. So on the one hand, the main business of the hospital is professionals. You've got one set of contracts that are going to deal with your professional services and then everything else. So that's the way this is set up.
So a lot of this looks almost identical to this resolution that you sent us, Janet, from several years ago
And we looked at that too.
that was not adopted. And it was confusing when we got it because it didn't say when it was from or anything like that. I thought when I read it, somebody has proposed this, but this is just historic. This is not anything that anybody has proposed currently. Is that right?
I haven't seen that one.
And actually got some calls from from Metro about, are you guys really going to adopt this proposal? So and I don't think anybody on the board has actually seen this because it's only been sent to us. Is that right? I only got it in the packet for this committee meeting.
So this was found, when I was asked to find a resolution, this was found in Dawn Thomas's files, who was Dr. Webb's assistant. This was dated, the file was dated 2009.
Yeah.
And I never found anything that was signed.
Right.
And
Okay.
Derek and I spoke about it at length, and I said I could not find anything that had a
Okay.
signature.
Precedes my tenure, so.
Right,
Yeah.
so we do not know for sure.
Yeah, so that's not in play, really.
We do
Except
not
the
know.
numbers happen to be the same as the
What?
numbers in here. Exactly
I
the
did
same.
not see that, though.
Okay,
Now
it's
that-
coincidence.
But the problem is, that makes me feel bad, because 2009 numbers versus 2024. But the numbers I put in here seem reasonable.
That also precedes
Maybe that's
Metro's
why.
capital and, or not capital, but supplement.
I don't know, I felt like these numbers were the numbers I put in here. So you're thinking about what the dollar value then versus now is, which is maybe why people had questions at that
Well,
point?
no, nobody has, back then, they may have, I don't know if it was considered, we don't know anything about the history of it. And the board has not seen that.
Okay.
The people in this committee have seen it, and that's all.
And this was prior to the 2018 minutes that we found.
Okay. And also, anybody who saw the agenda, including people in your office, saw that. And I don't know if anybody in the mayor's office looks at it, but anybody who looks at the packet that you sent out. And there's some stuff in there that we don't have to discuss because it's not being proposed, but I can see why it wasn't adopted. But so it just sort of gets us back to the numbers, the two numbers, and also the thing in the bottom that says trustees should be required in the event of an agreement whose term equals or exceeds 8 years. That seems like a huge number because everything we deal with seems to be 3-year
Does it? Okay.
contracts.
So
Why is
then-
that in there?
That was less than, I think, the other ones that we looked at, which were 10 years, which I thought was too long, so I bumped it down to 8. But, I mean, listen, I think 5 may be fair.
Well, right now it's essentially 3.
Is it?
I mean, I haven't read that it has to be 3. In fact, it's not in the bylaws as of now, but, I mean,
I don't,
I'm nervous of approving a contract for more than 3 years.
okay.
That's what we're used to doing. What do you think, Michelle?
I feel like we could leave it at 3. 8 definitely seems too long. 5 almost feels too long. I'd be more comfortable with 3, I think.
That's my impression. Now, I may not understand the reason for this.
And that's what I was
I
going
can
to
be
ask.
swayed if you
There-
explain it to me.
Right, there
I
could be a
rarely
circumstance.
I don't see every contract that you all see, but in my line of business, I see 5 years a lot when people want to lock you into a contract. But I understand this is the first time we're setting up something like this.
Yeah.
So
And-
I understand if maybe we begin here and listen, if we decide that this is still micromanaging, I mean, there is a verge of micromanaging, right? So if we feel like by putting the 3-year cap on there, we're micromanaging, we can always come back. I mean, and the committee can
Yeah.
get back together and
And
change
and
it.
maybe,
beneficial, sure.
Maybe Dr. Webb and or others in administration will tell us they think that this is too restrictive, but I think we also have to make sure that we are fulfilling our oversight duties, and if something comes up, renewal of a contract, that we will ask, how's this contract going, and is this what we still want to do, or if it's necessary, like with Cerner, this is a long contract, right? It's at least 10 years. But that should come to the board, and
We can make this 3 years. I think
Okay.
it's fair.
okay.
So then we come back to the separation. I do think it makes sense to separate kind of, here is kind of our quote line of business versus our adjacent contracts, right?
You're talking about professional services.
Professional
versus-
services,
yeah.
where we're going to have more of those.
Yeah, my only question about that is, right now, we have our administration and Meharry's administration telling us completely different things about hiring. And I think the board, would like to know more about major hiring changes. And I don't know, we had our
I think we have to decide, like, we should decide major, because again, you're a board, but you're not CEO. I mean, CEO still gets to, right? There's this level of oversight and there's this. And so are you worried that the 500 kind of puts a little?
Well, I don't know how much our doctors, our newly hired doctors make. Maybe no new contracts are over 500. Maybe all new contracts are over 500. I would need some perspective on that. And why 500?
Yeah, I don't have that answer. I understand your question, though.
And that probably ought to be a board discussion when we propose this. But I mean, we need to. If we're not going to have a meeting, we do need to propose a number. What's your feeling about this, Michelle? We're just talking about professional services now.
I don't mind. Is there a way you could see kind of a summary of them, but you may not have to approve each individual one? Because you're talking about doctor salaries now, and then we're looking at the professional services and the non-medical professionals.
So is the board then going to look at every single profession?
Well, and that's what I'm wondering. Is that what we want to do? And I'm only saying that because you brought up a specific instance of like doctor salaries. And I mean, I know we go through accreditations and things, but just do we want to go line by line?
I don't think any hospital board goes over line by line every single physician contract.
No,
I wouldn't think.
No.
We
don't want that.
I get what he's asking. I mean, your concern is I understand your concern, right? I'm not sure I want to categorize it. It is that some contracts have a different impact than others, right? And so how is the board, where is that level of involvement supposed to be, right? Because sometimes we're hearing different things.
Yeah, let's look at the current situation. Is we work under a plan that we review all operational contracts of $50,000. If we reviewed all professional services provider, then we would be reviewing every single contract. We don't want that. And maybe, I mean, I guess 500,000 may be chosen because who's over $500,000? Maybe a cardiologist, an orthopedic surgeon. I guess there's nobody in the room that can answer that.
Well, they're not your only professional services, right? You also have marketing, you have somebody like me, you have...
Professional services is not marketing in the state of Tennessee.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we've been through that.
Spent time there, the no bid.
Legal
Yes, we know that.
They're specifically, it's accounting, legal,
Accounting.
architect, engineer. Certain computer software can qualify under the state procurement code.
So you could break out medical professional services and then non-medical professional services.
So, where did this number come from?
This number came from Airport Authority, but it's less.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As I recall.
And so the comment to me about Airport Authority is that, we are helping the city oversee expenditure of the money that they're giving to this hospital, you know. And the city's not giving any money to the airport authority. Is that right? That's what I'm told. They make all their bundle of money from
There are a few
moving people from me
independent-
around.
We'll call them independent. They're affiliated with Metro, but we'll call them independent boards. Metro Transit Authority is one, the airport, hospital, seems like a sports authority, but they're financed through their own operations, especially the airport authority. I mean,
So one thing to think about is, I lost my train of thought. There was something you said that gave me, I was going down with it. Sorry. And then I
Well-
turned to him, but you had made a good point. I'm
All right,
sorry.
let me say that I think you have explained to me, and I now understand why these two things are separated out. That makes sense.
The numbers.
As a board member, I would, when I read this, I would like to know, oh, well, what are we talking about here? Is, you know, does this mean all doctors, no doctors? Does this mean what other kind of well, it does say professional medical services. We're talking about professional medical services here, the way it's written. So we're not talking about anybody else.
Oh, I did. See, I was good. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think I thought through that one and said I need to.
Okay.
I think I thought through the issues you were getting to, but the numbers are something for you all to.
Here's
I think the distinction, just professional medical services would include not just physician contracts. It could also include the lab contracts. It could
Okay.
call the radiology, all of those
Yes.
support services that carry a professional medical connotation is the way, if I was asked to give an opinion, I would construe that. It's-
Well, let me say, as one committee member to another, I think that the board is interested in strategic decisions about who the physicians are,
Okay.
you know, and whether we're moving, for example, from Vanderbilt Cardiology Services to hiring a cardiologist. And we want to know, why are we hiring a cardiologist?
Right.
That's a strategic decision. Or if we're hiring the oncologist who used to work for the Harry, then if we're triggered that we need to review particularly new contracts like that, then we have the opportunity to be explained, we're doing this and this is why we're doing it.
Right. And with this threshold, you're saying we could do that or we could not?
Well, I don't know because I don't know what
Yeah.
those contracts look like.
Yeah.
But let's say we're employing a surgeon, and the surgeon's making $400,000, and that surgeon's leaving, and we're employing a new surgeon. We don't need to know about that.
Right.
If we're going from a contract that involves a bunch of cardiologists at Vanderbilt, and we're going to hire a bunch of cardiologists here,
You would want
new
to know
contract,
that.
we want to know about that. I do.
Well, and to me, that would feel like a big change in medical services being provided if we're going to Vanderbilt Cardiology for $500,000 versus bringing in our own, and now that's
See,
$900,000.
I might be more interested in saying, she has delegated to enter into any new contract for professional medical services up to a maximum of, and then I would put in a number there that would trigger the board being notified, when we're kind of changing horses.
I think that's fair. I'm not sure how we would word that specifically, but I think that what you're saying is fair because it's not the individual review of each doctor's new salary or contract. It's the total change in services, but I feel like wouldn't we know that anyway? Isn't that part of what the reports from administration would be if we were changing that out?
You know, one thing you could do, in this old thing that we're not using, there was an exception. Is there any, did we read something here that say exceptions? Like you could say,
Now, if we start making exceptions, are we just creating a long list that we'd be adding to every time? Every time something
I'm only
popped up.
talking about one.
Okay.
For example, delegate to authority to enter any contract for professional medical services. And then you could say, exception would be something that does what I'm talking about doing I'm open to anything that would achieve the board knowing when we're making, strategic changes or changes that affect our relationship with our partners, like Vanderbilt and Harry.
Could that, and you would want that to be the exception for A or for the whole section? Like, would that be a subsection G that's like notwithstanding the above?
I
Any
think-
contract over blank amount?
I'm only talking about
Professional
medical
Okay.
services.
I don't see, I feel torn. I don't see anything wrong with that exception. I understand what you're getting at because it could be considered strategic. I just don't know what all that would include and what the board would be receiving, but I don't see anything wrong with that. I can understand where you're coming from. Is that something you would not want? I imagine you wouldn't want to include.
No, I
An
mean,
exception.
I'm over here daydreaming through what that looks like.
Yeah.
Is this the goal that this needs to be done for the meeting tomorrow
It's in a week.
in a week? Because it has to go out a week.
I mean, we could get this on the agenda.
We are required to have we're required to have a 10-day notice on this, any changes to the bylaws, is that correct?
So it's too
10
late.
day?
10 days instead
Okay.
of 7.
So we're not
If that's
done.
true,
Bylaws
then
correction.
we're
And
talking
it has
about,
to be
It was
by
the state
mail.
statute that I gave.
Mail
we're
and.
talking about June.
So we're talking June for
Yeah,
this.
okay.
Yes.
So I think, I need to go back and play with this. I don't think we can solve, I think I understand what you're getting at. I don't think that I think that I need to,
Well,
it's going to take
now-
me some time to create that. But I think what you're saying is when we are what you want to know is when we have changes to strategic partners, and I've got to think through how I'm going to define that because that's not going to be, but when we're having changes to strategic partnerships, and maybe we need to be, when there are changes to strategic partnerships, the board should be made aware, right?
They should approve.
Yeah, when they're professional,
They need to,
when they're professional service
That's a lot of micromanagement.
contracts.
it's mandatory. Under the state statute, under the Hospital Authority Act, changes of strategic plans and marketing strategies have to be approved by the board.
Not plans, I think it's partners, though. I think it's how we're defining,
Well, strategic partner plays into the strategic plan, in my opinion, and therefore they set those policies.
are specific entities named in the strategic plan? And forgive me that I haven't.
Well, you would have to.
I don't know who else.
You'd have to.
I don't think they've
Strategic
ever
partners.
approved it, which
No.
is.
I mean, this will not be popular with,
Can
Some
I
of
make
our
one point,
administration.
though, off this topic, just one thing, in Part C, we need to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down, it says, or change, or, I think that second
Change
or
or
needs to
is-
come out. And it would,
Change is Yes.
is presented to the Board of Trustees, but I think that needs to be qualified. Just presenting it to the board isn't sufficient. You're either going to be asking them to ratify it, approve or not approve, something like that, because it could just be shown to them and then they're bound by any
Well,
of
here's
those
the
things.
thing, well, here's the problem with that. If I have to act in an emergency, I've acted, right? So you can't come behind me and say, I don't want it because it's already come and gone.
Well,
But-
then what does presenting it to the board accomplish? Now, in my humble legal opinion, that is,
It's letting them, it's letting them know. I mean, so,
but this says a lease. That could be a long-term lease, a 3-year lease that they've been, in an emergency, a 3-year lease. I mean,
I can put some parameters around that. I mean,
I
so,
could understand if they had to relocate because there was damage to the building and they needed to take the patients. But if, without, there has to be some ratification or approval necessary other than just presenting it to the board.
so if I'm a board member, I'm not going to ratify something I disagree with, right? But it's already happened. But I think what I can do is, as I work back on this, I can put some bumper guards around it, right? So, listen, if there's an emergency, we've got to allow him to act. And he's consulting with the board chair, who you hope is going to represent the board, the voice of the board. So that CEO is not acting alone.
Then maybe the guardrail is that
Maybe it's
the
temporary.
term of any of such agreements can't exceed the
Yeah, I
extent
was-
of the emergency
Well, they can't exceed so many days or the extent of the emergency, something like that. is
before
what I
it
was
comes
thinking.
back to the board to
Or some
extend
type
or
of
approve.
amount, or some type of
Well,
amount.
maybe the word lease should not be in there. Is there anything?
Well, I don't, but
I didn't
is there
prepare the
such thing
language,
as an
it's just things like
emergency
that.
lease?
I mean, I don't know, what if, so I'm one that wants to not bind someone when this board can't come together, like a private entity can, but it does still have to face emergencies. I don't know what could happen. Maybe we get washed, the hospital gets washed away. And we've got to have an emergency lease somewhere, but I think we can put bumper guards around it to say it can't extend, it can't be more than a certain number of days. So
And my advice was only limited to thinking of real property leases. You all have equipment leases too, and I could see emergencies
okay.
affecting that.
In the last 3 years, there's been one emergency, and that had to do with purchase or lease of a piece of equipment where if we didn't do it before the end of the month, then the price was going to go out. And we had a special meeting to do that. And that would have been appropriate emergency. So that helps the CEO in the hospital. It would have, and we wouldn't have had to meet in that one. Do you remember what it was? I can't remember exactly what it was.
You made a good point there. What if the guardrail is in an emergency or these conditions, should the board be unable to have a special called meeting prior to the need to enter into that, then the CEO gets to act and it then is presented to the board at the next meeting. But it just needs to be, it needs a temporal component in my mind if it's an emergency, not a 3, 5, 8, 10-year lease project. That doesn't, the emergency will have waned by that time. So I just think massaging it with some guardrail, and it could be to the extent the board's unable to meet at a special called meeting to address the change in or to comply with federal or state law or an emergency situation, then he's authorized, he or she is authorized to
So
act.
what sort of temporal, can you suggest, what do you have in mind for temporal limits?
I like beyond the emergency, or 30 days, whichever.
I mean, within 30 days, you could have your regular meeting and
Well, but
that may put you in breach if you tried to cancel and the contract that was approved didn't include the ability to cancel it.
Well, you'd have to, if I only am authorizing you to do something for the nature of the emergency or no more than 30 days, you couldn't you couldn't enter into.
Oh,
an
no
agreement.
more than 30, I got
Yeah.
you.
You
Okay.
couldn't enter into a lease that was longer than that.
Yeah,
or
and then
a
you could, at your
contract.
next meeting, vote to extend it to,
Yeah.
if it's needed or not. But yeah,
Yeah, that
So-
wouldn't have worked in this situation. This was at least a year-long agreement.
But in that one, how long does, what's the notice on, and if this isn't needed, we can take it out. What's the notice on special meetings? I'm just
7
trying to
days.
think.
no, if it's a true emergency, we can call a meeting this minute. It doesn't even have to be noticed. That's what happened during COVID. They were called on a Sunday with no notice, declaring the state of emergency.
Okay.
If you have a true emergency, even state public open, I almost forgot that, the Open Meetings Act allows the call in an emergency. Now, it can't be an emergency to what you're saying, sort of like we created it, we're going to lose the benefit of a bargain. It sounds like an emergency, but it
I'm
really
thinking
isn't.
like tornado comes through and devastates.
True emergency,
Yeah,
you can
that's a-
call,
And
the
I've
board
got
can
to
call a meeting
contract.
right then.
Yeah.
But if they couldn't, and until they can call their emergency session, and the CEO shouldn't be bound, he needs to act to protect.
This was all this was thinking, and right, I understand it does need to have some bumper guards, but it
Yeah,
wasn't,
definitely.
it wasn't to look for some big loose,
No, no, no.
gap.
I'm just
It
saying we
would
need to.
say, you have a straight line winds, tornado comes through, we've got to act immediately. Can't get the board on the phone because half of them are dealing with an emergency.
Emergency,
Yeah.
too. No. So I just was pointing out, we need something that they do at their next available meeting. But there ought to be a limit placed on the entering into it, as you said, because once the hospital's in it, it's sort of in it. But there should be consideration expressed that it's a tornado and we got an emergency situation, but we shouldn't be entering into 3-year agreements.
Right.
A month or two or something like that might be sufficient, but
Yeah, I like
So-
the 30 days.
again, that is just a legal thought to consider to allow you to act. But as far as calling meetings, in an emergency, a true emergency, you're not limited to the 7 days notice of a special called meeting. It can be called immediately.
You know, in any one of these points, I would ask the question, who is asking for this and why? And can that person explain why they want it? Are you the one that is asking for this?
I just drafted it trying to think of, if we're gonna, when you start going down contract authority lines, you begin to think of, your job is to kind of think about all of your possibilities, right? So I can grant you, we talked about, I think initially the discussion was $350,000, but what does that really mean, right? And then is that really addressing the needs that we have? So, but I have no pride in authorship on this. It just,
Okay,
yeah.
I like when we're thinking of doing something, somebody say, I'm asking for this because of the following. This is, and then usually I can be, okay, I understand that. So,
I think you all had asked us to consider what contract authority language would be, up to
Yeah.
$350,000. And I then began to think, but that's just very broad, right? What does that mean? And do you mean it for every type of contract that comes through here? Which has prompted questions, right? So this, in part, did its job because it then is eliciting, it then has prompted you to think through other things. Maybe we don't want it that broad.
well, I think that the reason the board is interested in doing this is not to be restrictive, it's to liberalize. And then just draw the parameters.
Okay.
And again, we haven't talked yet about $325,000. I don't know where that came from. Maybe you can tell me, but we're looking at going from 50 to 325. Maybe we should be going from 50 to 100. Why are we looking at 325?
325 was based on the number that you all discussed in your last meeting,
We
I
did,
think.
well, somebody threw it in there,
Yeah.
but we didn't agree that that would be the number. And I think we have to we have to make sure the board maintains their ability to have oversight. And I think that, I think honestly that the mayor's office is interested in what we're doing here and would not like to have some input into it, so we have to take that into consideration. I'll throw out there that we ought to double our limit to $100,000.
I think I would be okay with 100,000. Has anyone from the mayor's office given any guidance or insight on this, either through,
I've just gotten some concern about
going
raising
from
the
50
limit
to
so
3?
much, and sort of taking the board further out of touch with
Daily management.
what's going on, and we've got we should have the interest in the hospital in mind, but we also have fiduciary responsibility to
Right.
metro government. And
Yeah.
I think this will, when this goes to the board, there will be a discussion of the number, whatever it is.
Right. I would almost be more comfortable putting that at 100, and then even as we have the conversation, what would pop up?
Yeah, then.
That, for example, that we just haven't thought of. I think that would be more helpful
Yeah,
for me.
And the administration will see this before it comes to the board meeting, and they will be prepared to say, well, it ought to be more, or whatever they
Right.
want to say.
So you want to put it at 100,000, and what do you want to do for the, or is that for all?
For the 500, for professional services. No, I understand. I do
I
think
thought we
that
were leaving
professional
it at 5.
services should be,
A little higher, but we need to
Higher.
distinguish. I think that's the language I need to work on. I think I hear you saying you want to distinguish a physician's contract from some major.
yeah, it's so funny. I looked at the number and I just assumed, they're talking about doctor salaries, because that's,
That was one of the
Probably,
things I had in mind. I mean,
what some of them are, probably a cardiologist or an orthopedic surgeon probably is not going to work for us, for less than that. Again, we could say 400,000 and then let the administration explain to us.
Right, and I think we could leave that because these are just recommendations. And I think what we're looking for is just more context. Because to me, the 500,000, I'm like, that could be salaries, that could be I could understand how you could get up to 500,000.
Well, I honestly want to know the answer to the questions you just asked. And I think if we put it high, then it won't push the administration to explain to us what it is. If we put it a little lower, then there's opportunity for them to tell us which contracts they're talking about here and why it needs to be higher, and then we'll, if we're convinced of that, we'll
Is
say.
there a way to get an average? I know that's probably a lot to ask. Is there a way to kind of see an average of what professional medical services what we're currently seeing?
I'll inquire. I'm sure they can.
And then the same for the non-medical professional services, just to provide context so you all could at least help walk us through that. If it needs to be 800,000, not 500,000, why? Why is that based on what previous or current contracts look like versus do we want to jump from 50,000 to 325?
Let me clarify something. I don't think that would include equipment, but it includes the services using the medical equipment, that sometimes you all don't hire a particular physician, but you have, for example, under state law, you're required to have an emergency medical physicians group cover your ER.
Yeah.
Because you can't hire emergency room physicians and staff. That's done through a contract you have with a separate independent entity.
Okay.
Radiology services, laboratory. is it pulmonology too? There's like 4 or 5 categories under state law. So you're going to have one bucket that's got your physician services of outside entities, and then you may also, this would also include, to what everyone I think at the table was thinking at one point, these are our own employed physicians' contracts too.
Yeah.
But it is beyond, so it may be as simple as those state statute required separate contracts plus those that you hire. And then, but there may be a few more that you've had this, you can't hire individuals, so you have to get a group to cover for those services. But that would be something I would think the staff would know.
I would favor a little bit lower number there that would.
375?
Will be discussed. Pardon?
Would you rather lower it to 375?
That sounds good. And lower the other one to 100, and then, I for one will be very amenable to hearing to argument why it should be higher.
Okay.
Are we coming back as this committee to look at this?
I think if we can get those numbers like that and change the 8 to 3 years, we may not have to meet again, except that for C, because you are offering to work on C.
I think I can work on C, but if Derek is saying that the board can meet in an emergency and the most expeditious way to handle that, absent someone, is to take it out. I mean, I was really thinking in the event that this board can't come together for certain reasons, what happens in the event of a catastrophic emergency? How do we allow this hospital to do what it needs to do to care for its patients?
And to that point though, if the call needs to be made, even if they can meet and approve, it's still going to be a lapse of time. So from a legal perspective, I think the safer course is to just place a term limit on any such emergency or compliance contracting issues of 30 days.
I'm happy to limit it to say if the board cannot have a special meeting, right, then the CEO is authorized with the board chair. And then to say that they're able to do this but can't enter it into a contract. Well, you sure would hate them.
30 days is too short, I think.
Maybe. You should be able to get together in 30 days.
Well, we can get together, but then you can't come up with a new contract. I don't know.
Well,
If you got together, could you vote to extend if
You
you
can vote
needed
to
more
extend it,
time?
yeah.
I mean, the emergency contract, we write contracts all the time that say something like 30-day term subject to extension by the board.
Okay.
And that's a drafting as opposed to the policy. So if in the policy, it just gives a parameter, this isn't meant to be a long-term deal until the board can.
This is meant to address a catastrophe, right?
Yeah.
Where, it could happen. I hope it never does.
No, it's a great idea.
I
So
like it.
It's
Yeah,
just I was a
like-
little alarmed when I saw the word lease, because I don't think of short-term leases too frequently, and this should probably be a short-term lease.
You might have to lease a new, robot or something because the other one's out, or that one's not really emergency. But we're not talking about leasing property.
We might have
Well,
to
it needs to specify that, because right now it
if
doesn't.
this conference room went out and all the administrative offices, they might need
Have to
to
lease
Right.
something
quickly
Yeah.
until they could figure something else out with this
We would certainly want
board.
that to
Yeah.
happen. Well, so I've been on the board for 3 years. We have not had anything like this.
We can-
And one thing to do is say, we could have that in the proposal and strike it out and say the committee did not recommend this, but it was considered. So people
if you say
look
you
at
don't
it.
re- if you say you-
I'm trying to figure out a way that we don't have to meet again. I mean, I don't mind meeting again, but.
Yeah.
And let me just finish my thought on it. This is the one provision that has no limit in dollar amounts whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so if you don't limit the term, that's where it drew my attention that there's just no parameters here, but it does seem to address the temporal emergency time period you think of, and so an initial response is needed, but it then needs to be visited for them to decide.
So I think we've got some good ideas how to limit this in a way that would be satisfactory. The question is, can we come up with that wording and present it to the board 5 weeks from now without this group meeting again?
Yeah,
I think we can. Because
Here's-
when will
here's your-
we get the draft back? When will we get the,
The draft of this back?
yes, with the updates that we discussed?
well, I think that can be reflected with your motion. If you all, so far, as I've been noting, this is the first part of this proposal that you all are reworking. And the minutes, and please correct me if I've missed them, I think they've suggested that anywhere this section stated 500,000, that number was reduced to 375. Anywhere it said 325,000, that number is reduced to 100,000.
Yes.
The other dollar figures have remained the same, and the only thing that changed so far definitively is in F, reducing 8 years to 3 years.
Yeah.
That's correct.
But what about E?
Well, that would be covered by anywhere in the document that the figure 500,000 is mentioned.
Oh, I
It's
see.
reduced to
Yeah, I got you.
375.
I got you, I understand.
And anywhere it's yeah, okay.
And then,
And then we're adding the ratification or approval in C.
We're just going
adding-
to, we're limiting it to say, in the event the board cannot call us, but that's going to preface it, in the event the board is unable, in the
Okay.
event the board is unable to hold a special meeting, blah, 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 blah. And then we're going to have to I'll put in here somewhere, provided that no contract shall extend beyond 30 days.
so can we do that in the next 10 minutes? And then we will have
Well, so
a
I've already,
recommendation.
yep, I've already kind of said that C is going to start off with, work with me, in the event a special,
Or
Meeting.
emergency. I think they're two different things under the law. Special called meetings or
a
an
special
emergency.
called or emergency meeting of the board is, I hate to say-
Cannot be,
Is unable to occur.
is unable to occur.
I was trying to make it, yeah, I'll leave it that. Is able to occur, comma, the CEO, da-da-da-da-da. So, so long as said contract, da-da-da-da-da, agreement or change is no longer than 30 days, and, well, I just think 30 days, period, because, I mean, obviously, if they need it for longer, they're going to have to come back to the board to present it, so,
And if
period.
there's an emergency,
This board is going
I
to
know the
come.
CEO is going to come in and say, hey, I had to do these things.
Yeah.
Okay, so, period.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just deleting the rest of,
Yeah,
Okay.
because, I mean, 30 days will not get you very far, so if you have to come back to this board, you need to come back to this
yeah,
board, so.
if you need longer.
Okay,
Okay, perfect.
so in order for us to present something to the board that we are, as a committee, are recommending, I think we need to, for you to read
You
the
want me to read it
wording
again?
to us, so we can say aye.
Yes.
Okay. In the event, this is number C, right? In the event a special called or emergency meeting of the board is unable to occur, the CEO is authorized, after consultation with the board chair, to execute any contract, lease agreement, amendment, supplemental agreement, or change order which is necessary in an emergency. I would like to just say any agreement.
Any-
Does anybody disagree with me? Why don't we just say any agreement?
To execute any agreement,
Mm-hmm.
and not list contract, lease, agreement,
Yeah, I
amendment.
mean, you know. We'll leave it as is. Okay,
What is a change order, by the way?
a change order, generally that comes when you have contracts, when you have construction. Some people have them when they have master services agreements, and you have an order that exists and you need to change. I mean, so you've got some kind of master construction agreement or master services agreement, and you've got a kind of small statement of works that come after it, and you do change orders.
It's sort of a different process, but it is basically just an amendment.
It's a contract amendment, yeah.
So any agreement or supplemental agreement, or just any agreement which is necessary in an emergency?
I just think it just reads a little more plain English to
Clear.
say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's getting, this is
definitely.
getting to be a really long sentence.
I just think any agreement,
Okay. Necessary.
which is necessary in an emergency, or which is, I don't know that we need to say to comply with regulations. I mean, we're always going to have, I'm just trying to cut down on confusion.
The federal, we got no business having an emergency change during federal regulations, right? I mean, federal, they're not going to say, you need to do this in 7 days.
No, or,
Seven.
nor is the state. So I'm going to take, or I'm just going to say,
Well, I think it'd be unconstitutional to have a change in the law affect an existing contract. At least that's what I learned in
Just
contract law,
contracts
first day in law
101.
school. But there could be something, though, that,
Well, I mean, the federal and state governments both
well,
have new regulations.
That'd be new, yeah.
all right, I'm
This
going
is-
to read you some clean language. We're going to start from the top,
Okay.
all right?
Okay.
All right,
In the event a special called or emergency meeting of the board is unable to occur, the CEO is authorized after consultation with the board chair to execute any agreement which is necessary in an emergency so long as said agreement is no longer than 30 days,
I like it.
period.
Like it.
Is that the whole thing?
That's it.
Okay. All right, so,
Do we want to do a motion for that or for the whole?
I think you want to do it.
let's just do for that. All right. And I want to make sure, have we considered, B, we hadn't talked about B. It says the CFO can act for things not in excess of $10,000.
well, I think that's just saying he's an additional approval of any agreement over $10,000 in addition to the CEO. Am I reading that?
Right.
All agreements in excess of 10,000 must receive the certification of the chief financial officer. Yes,
Yeah, I
he's
think
just
that's-
another.
Okay,
He does
so
that anyway.
that's between 10,000
Yeah.
and 100,000.
Yeah.
Anything over
Well, he
100.
does it anything over 10,000, but that's happening anyway.
the CFO. Okay, that's C. Okay, D, the powers of the CEO granted or delegated may be further delegated by the CEO to any other officer, provided, however, no such delegation shall exceed 75. I'm good with that. Okay. E, we've talked about, and F, we've talked about. Okay.
Okay.
So I move that we send forward a recommendation to the board, section V, section, section 4, as stated, with the change of 500 to 400, 325 to 100,000,
500 to
500 to
375.
375.
375, yeah, thank you. 325 to 100, 8 years to 3 years, and section C as just read to us by our esteemed colleague.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
And now we have to do the,
The only other.
yeah, have we
Is there
approved
one
the
other
entire thing with all the red things?
So, no, there's only the changes that you haven't seen are in blue, and some of them were just my,
Do we need to?
We'll
Have
just
we already?
clean up.
I just want to bring them to your attention if you switch to page 14.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll
Yeah.
run through them. It didn't have a title, and I gave it a title.
okay.
okay.
Like, I just made it consistent. In 15, nobody sends out registered mail anymore.
Okay.
I just took that out. You can do it if you want to.
Proof delivery.
Proof of
Okay,
delivery.
thank you.
Page 17,
Is it proof of delivery or proof delivery?
it says two.
Proof of.
I said proof of delivery.
Okay, need an of in there.
Which page is that one on?
Page 15.
Sorry.
Page 15,
Sometimes with
Let's
the
see.
red lines, it just.
Okay.
Proof of. It's proof of. All right, same is on page 17
okay.
and page 18 and that. Wait a minute, I think same on page 20. And then again, on page 21, article, I'm so bad, that's article 9. Didn't have I just made it consistent and called it NGH personnel. Same as article 10, it didn't have a title. Well, and article 11 was made to be consistent with what you're changing in the contract authority, right?
For amounts over of the authority delegated to the NGH administration provided in Article 6, the board may enter into contractual agreements with any appropriate.
That's not necessary. We can just take it out if it's confusing.
For the amounts over the authority delegated, the ones we just agreed on, provided in Article 6, Section 4, the board may enter into contractual agreements with any appropriate health care organization to provide health care and organize the medical staff governed by a set of bylaws provided by the medical staff approved by the Board of Trustees. I don't know why that's in
I
there.
don't either.
A contractual agreement that has to do with the medical staff.
That wouldn't be us, would
It previously was.
it? Oh. Don't be quiet.
What sort of thing does this authorize the board to do? Enter into what kind of contractual agreement?
With a healthcare organization to provide health care. So
What,
I guess enter into a
The
contract with
agreements-
Vanderbilt to provide,
Could have been that, could be the contract with the emergency physicians group that staffs the ER. I mean, those,
it's just saying that the board may do this over the $375,000.
right.
Okay.
All right, I gave a title to that. I think the only thing that's left was, well, a couple more.
well, Article 11 doesn't have a title.
Yes.
It does not.
Slipped me. I was trying to make everything consistent.
I thought I was not saying it properly for a minute. Um,
Provision of health care. Provision of health care and medical staff organization.
Why don't we say contracts with healthcare organizations?
Okay.
It just seemed, I started something, but with healthcare organizations.
I think it should also include, what's important here is this medical staff part of it. This board sets up how the medical staff is organized.
What about contracts with healthcare organizations / organization of medical staff?
I think
That's good.
Yeah.
appropriate. Otherwise, when us lawyers are trying to find the provision in the bylaws, we'll see just the
I know you, and so
contractual agreements, and we won't even think it has anything to do with the medical staff.
it's where my lawyer neuroticism was like, there needs to be titles on some of these are missing titles. Conflicts of interest.
Can I also point out something there? It may be later in it, but there is a state statute in the Hospital Authority Act that says
This,
what constitutes conflicts of interest.
okay.
And I don't have the site, and I don't have my computer. I didn't think about that until you just read the title of that
The
section.
problem that I sometimes think through is we repeat what a conflict of interest is, but we don't talk about what to do with them, right?
There's actually also some AG opinions and so forth
Well, so-
regarding that statute. I just don't want someone, I can't sit here and give an opinion at this moment whether the Metro Code or the mayor's executive order is less or more restrictive than the state statute.
Okay.
And I don't want us to lose sight.
Let's just take this out then, to be easy, and we can come back and look at the conflict.
Take out the additional.
Yeah.
Well, no, what I was going to propose is follow the procedures as established by Metro Code of Laws and executive order to the extent not inconsistent with state law.
Yeah.
Where are you adding that?
At the end of the first paragraph,
Where it's citing.
The first paragraph of Article 13.
To the extent not inconsistent with state law? Consistent with state law?
or to the extent the members remain consistent with state law. So, just something to draw attention to that, because
Okay.
when I'm gone, and there's another attorney, that Hospital Authority Act does have a specific statute that speaks to conflicts of interest for metropolitan hospital authorities. Board members, I should say.
Are we allowed, so let's cross out the addition that I did to paragraph number 1. Can we keep number 6 though? And that's pretty standard language from the IRS.
I don't have the statute in front of me, but your bylaws may there be more restrictive. State law, I think, provides something about disclosure, but not necessarily recusal.
Okay.
But I don't want to give the idea that I would ever counsel a board member with a conflict of interest who believed they needed to recuse themselves. They should, especially if there's a financial interest,
Yeah.
direct or indirect.
You should always recuse yourself.
Right. So I don't mind.
I'm fine with
If
it.
someone called a point of order because of a bylaw, and then we found a state law, the state law would always preempt the bylaw. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, no,
I
I'm
have no
aligned.
comment on this discussion.
No comment, okay.
No, he's like, that one's, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It can get tricky because it deals with your family members and what they have interest in, not just you. And when it happens, it's always a
Yeah.
scandal.
Yeah. It's never easy.
It's not clean, but
So what about the very last, page 24?
Is there one? Did we miss
There's
one?
a lot of blue on page 24.
that's what we were just
I thought that's what we were
That's
talking about.
what we're
Yeah,
talking
that's
about.
what.
So we're
yeah.
striking it?
Keeping it.
No, we're keeping
Keeping
that,
it.
and
We're
we're
striking
striking
what's in 1.
at the bottom of 22, top of 23.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Now, one more thing.
Okay.
I was reminded when I went through this in detail for the last meeting that didn't happen. There was something on page 17 C, date for appellate review. And I'm going to read through it for myself so I can see what I didn't think was right. If a practitioner provides timely notice to the Board of Trustees of practitioner's request for appellate review within 15 days after receipt of such notice, the Board of Trustees will schedule a date for such review, including a time and place for oral argument if such has been requested and been approved by the Board of Trustees, and will, through the Chief Executive Officer, by written notice sent, proof of delivery, notify the affected practitioner. The date of the appellate review should not be less than 20 days nor more than 60 days from the date of the receipt of the notice of the request for appellate review, except under exigent circumstances or when the affected practitioner requests the review is under a suspension, which is then in effect. Such review will be scheduled as soon as the arrangements for it may reasonably be made, but which period should not exceed 30 days. Okay, so not was added. That fixed it. Thank you. I'm satisfied.
I caught that one. I missed that.
Okay. Well, all right, so I move that we forward these recommendations for bylaws changes to the board.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. All right. Thanks, y'all.
You say what, you make the recommendation.
I think they're saying forward these bylaws as amended with a recommendation from this committee to the full board.
That's what I.
Recommendation for,
Amended to the full board, yes. That's exactly what
Do
he
you
meant.
want to say it all together so I get it perfect?
I'll try to state the motion again.
Okay.
Yes.
The motion is for this committee to refer the bylaws as amended with this committee's recommendation for approval to the full board.
Thank you.
Something like that. No, I got lost that time. That's.
I think it sounded good.
It sounded, yes.
I think I.
We appreciate you.
I did. I think I said something redundant in there, but
And
that's the spirit of your motion.
and somehow the minutes should reflect that somehow that you know this discussion of the specifics should be expected at the board meeting. In other words, I don't know, maybe you don't, maybe that's obvious. Maybe people will say the numbers are too high or too low or something. Or that there was significant discussion about the
Thresholds.
the thresholds with the expectation that there will be input from administration
And other board members, yeah.
So, in other words, we're open to hearing why it should be different.
Right.
But this way, we've got something to present.
And I think you also hope that the administration would come with,
Fill in the contours of that
Yeah, the
section
context,
C.
yeah.
Not C, I'm sorry.
No, what section?
Well, it was the
3?
entire section of Article 4 or Section.
Yeah, that's good.
Section 4, yeah.
So this committee requests that the administration, explain
We'll make the motion.
the,
Committee would invite-
Explain the need of, explain the justification behind the contract parameters.
there you go. That's good. Thank you.
So we want to make a
You know,
motion
you
that
got
the
2 lawyers in
administration
this. Awesome.
will explain the contract parameters when presented to the full board meeting.
Explain
How
the
about
need
support-
for it.
how-
The committee,
Yeah, or support the need, yeah, explain the need for it.
is that what you're saying?
Well, no, it wouldn't be the committee explaining, it'd be the administration.
I think what he was
explaining.
saying was, I mean, what's the average, it would be helpful to know what your average, I had in here a note about wanting to know the average
Yeah, let's be
value of
specific.
professional.
Yeah.
Let's be specific about that, because, we're talking about something for 5 or 6 weeks from now. You and I will not remember. What were we asking?
Well, it sounded like you all are comfortable without a great deal of debate and discussion on any of the other changes you
Yeah,
made in the bylaws, except for that one section.
Yeah,
And you're inviting input from
The board.
this, well, first
From
from
the administration.
staff to explain
to the board.
those changes, and then secondly, for the board to then consider, in other words, you're drawing attention to their consideration and input for that
yeah.
section.
I mean, the effect of it is that I would not want the administration to get the impression that we said it needs to be this number.
There's flexibility.
What we're asking is, we're open-minded, but we need some information about what these professional service contracts are like in terms of their, what types of contracts are they, and what sort of amounts are we looking at? How much of this is for doctor salaries and other things? Those are the things we can. And so that's not a motion. That's just something for you to put in the minutes for them to read and respond to, and for us to be reminded when we read. So
Well, one of you is going to present a report to the full board at the next
Yeah.
meeting. And
Yeah.
at the time of your report, it seems like what you're suggesting is you're going to.
we won't have approved the, well,
You won't have improved the minutes yet.
we want to approve the minutes, but you will have signed
Mm-hmm.
the minutes, right?
No.
At the,
No.
She
no,
doesn't sign them
Till
until they've
the-
been
Well,
approved.
she will have seen them,
Yes.
and she can use those minutes to
bring
give
them
you a
up in the-
report.
yes.
And then, here's the crazy thing, is the bylaws committee may not meet again for 5 years. So when do we approve these minutes?
You may never, the board could approve them.
Could
The
we?
people not in attendance at another committee, by other members on this committee at a later date could approve them.
So.
Robert's rules does allow for the full board.
The board can approve the minutes?
They can approve committee minutes also.
Okay, I didn't know that. So we want to make sure these minutes get approved.
You could make a request that on the board's agenda, that when a quorum of the committee members are present, I mean, approval of the minutes is really more of a perfunctory thing, but somebody does need to, as you well aware when you were the secretary, someone needs to read them and see that they make sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think all minutes need to be approved.
That's what, and I don't, there's several provisions that covers that, because sometimes a committee meets for one purpose at one day and never meets again.
I mean, the day of the board meeting, this committee could have a 60-second.
Yeah. And ratify
Good.
the minutes.
You got time to notice it.
Okay, all right.
We would have to have a notice just like it was a full
Yeah, well,
committee meeting.
why don't you have if the board meeting's at 4 o'clock, is that when they start?
They start at 4:30.
It starts at 4.
4.
but
Finance committee's meeting
Just to
get,
let you know, the finance committee will probably take all the way up until 4 o'clock because they
We're
actually
talking
start
about the July
early.
meeting now. I think.
Oh,
Oh, no, we can do it at this
June.
meeting. All right.
Oh, wait, we could, no,
So the board meeting starts at 4, this coming board meeting
right.
next
It's-
week.
It's going to be difficult for me to have the minutes ready before this. You can't, we
Okay.
won't be able to post them
Well,
7 days
all
prior
right, let's say the
either.
July meeting then.
Yes,
The board meeting starts at 4:30.
4.
At 4.
4 o'clock.
Okay.
We can do that
Can
then.
we have a call meeting at 3:59
Okay.
of the,
I'd recommend you do 350.
okay,
Just to,
Just in case.
of the
Okay.
Bylaws Committee? And as
Now-
long as you and I are there, we
Yeah,
can
we're
approve.
good.
Now, this is pending. Finance Committee has completed their business by 3:50.
We're always,
No.
Okay with that?
we're always mulling
You just
around.
stand in line.
As long as there's a call meeting,
Okay.
then Michelle can call that meeting to order, whether it's at 3:50, 3:57, 4:03, whatever. We can get that done.
I do have a question. Once Stacy has completed the edits before the June meeting, I need to send this out through electronic and also to their homes, since they may potentially be approving this version of the bylaw changes. Is it the 10-day notice come in effect for this?
yes.
Okay,
And
for the June
I
meeting.
forgot what method of delivery that statute specified. We need to check on the computer and comply with that state statute for the amendment of the bylaws, whatever
Right.
it states.
So I was going
Because
to
it
do
is
it with.
more, it's more strict than notice under the Open Meetings Act.
So it was proof of delivery, I think is what you said. So you and I can talk. It was proof
If
of
that's the
delivery.
word, that's the word
plus-
she said is
plus the-
usual for the changes in the bylaws, but I don't know what the state statute said
Okay.
for the method of delivery or the method of posting, or, we
So
need
you
to
can
visit
give me
that.
directive on that, and we can make sure that I hit the 10-day
Right.
mark before.
But
the
it's going to have
next-
to be, as Dr. Martin said, you don't have enough time to do it before the June 30 meeting. The May.
Right, it would have to be June, but I just want to make sure, because I could do it the week of June 10th, that week, and they would receive it in their hands with the 10-day notice.
Correct.
And could I ask, when you do the minutes, I noticed in the March minutes, it says that the committee members that were present, but it didn't say the staff and these guys who were present. I mean, shouldn't the minutes say everybody that was present at a meeting? I know you do that at the board meeting.
I think it just says others.
Yes, it only pull out Dr. Webb and Dr. Brown, like 2 or 3, and then say the others.
I would like our minutes to reflect that these two
Okay.
fine people
these
who
two.
helped us so
Perfect.
much to get through this were present at the meeting, so
Okay.
I move adjournment.
Second, meeting is adjourned. Thank y'all so much.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov